This podcast includes graphic depictions of true crime cases and may contain explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Hey, this is Robin.
This is Jackie.
And this is Amanda.
And you are listening to We Saw the Devil, a podcast dedicated to horror, true crime, and all things macabre. If you want to follow us between shows, don't forget to check us out online. You can go to our website at www.wesawthedevil.com. You can follow us on Instagram at We Saw the Devil Podcast or on Twitter at We Saw the Devil. And if you want to follow specific co-hosts' social media, you can find the links to those on our website as well. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Saw the Devil. Today, we have a quick update on the Lori Vallow case, which, guys, somehow it never fails. There is an update every single time we record.
Right? Every time we're about to say, okay, let's get ready. And then it's like, hey, Justin Lum, thanks for this update again.
Every single time. So we have a really quick Lori Vallow update, and then we have, because there's not much going on currently with the Lori Vallow case, we have some new true crime tales to tell. Tonight's episode will be killers who
live among you.
So, yeah, or killers who offended, got arrested, went to prison, reoffended. So we have some crazy, crazy tales. But before that, don't forget, if you are enjoying the show, to check us out on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/We Saw the Devil, and there should be some really cool tiers there for you with, various benefits. That being said, thank you so much to our current Patreons. We have Iris, Ian, Shawna, Derek, Amy, and Nikki. We really, really, really appreciate your support, and thank you.
We love you.
And if you guys, for those of you who got your t-shirts, we want to see them on you.
Yes,
give us a show.
You give us a show. Give us a show.
Yeah.
We need a hashtag for that.
Pour some water. I mean, come on, get creative. It's about to be the t-shirt challenge.
Yeah. They're black t-shirts, so,
Well, that's even better. That's darker better.
Yeah.
Darker is better.
So thank you guys so much. Really sincerely appreciate it. Other than that, again, check us out on social media. We have our new Instagram account, Twitter, Facebook. You can find us everywhere. Also, a very, very quick shout out to those who emailed us since the last show. For the last show, we weren't quite sure. We heard the name Sydney Shank, and we weren't quite sure who that was. So Jenny emailed us and gave us some background on Sydney and who she was in relation to Lori Vallow. And then also Alan W. reached out to us as well and gave a little bit of a background on Sydney. So thank you very, very, very much. We super appreciate it. Also, Donna is taking Annie Cushing's and, the entire, take a look at your videos and photos from Yellowstone, see if we can get any additional information. Was Lori there, the kids, so on and so forth. And Donna reached out to us and sent us a video. And yeah, thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it. It makes this all so much more interesting for all of us.
Right. I love waking up and opening the email and going, oh, wait, they have more information, or I want their takes on this. So it's really fun to read.
Thank you. Again, if you have any questions, additions, concerns, complaints, you can email us at wesawthedevil@gmail.com. Unless you guys have anything else, let's get into the damn Lori Vallow update that just came through 5 minutes ago.
Yes.
Amanda, do you want to start?
Sure. So basically what it is it's from Melanie's lawyers, and it's saying that everything that Brandon has been saying is incorrect, and she is not part of a cult. She didn't leave in the middle of the night. It was only 10:30, and she didn't abandon all of her kids' stuff on the road. It was just a couple items.
And she never had intention of leaving those kids behind.
No, that text message that she had left did not relay that information in any way. So we'll see how their custody battle continues. It's still strange to me that, Ian's take on it is being called incorrect now, or that she wasn't part of it. And I know he specifies in his letter, like, Melanie's innocent. Melanie wouldn't do this. But also, she moved across the country to follow Lori.
And he even states, Ian, I should clarify, states in his email/letter/journal or whatever that Melanie is completely being controlled by her uncles. So, but Melanie is perfect, according to her attorneys.
I'm perfect.
Right. Well, and then they are going after my girl, Natalie, and not liking that.
Girl, Natalie, reach out to us. We love you, homegirl. You don't deserve this. You don't deserve to be dragged into this trash.
Protect your kids,
and you don't deserve to be dragged into the trash heap of that is the Vallow family, the Cox family, shall I say.
What they say, it was something like she didn't have authority to have those documents or give those documents out.
It was a computer. It was shit found on a computer. Like,
yeah.
She's not talking about, like, national security secrets here.
Right.
But
right. So that was the recent update. It was just kind of a rebuttal saying that everything you said before is incorrect. Now, there's a couple other things that we learned this week. Lori Vallow, believe it or not, is trying to reduce her bond again.
Supposedly. So Justin Lum of Phoenix Fox 10 shared the documents, and it was requested on March 24th. So yesterday, Tuesday, March 24th. Her attorney, Mark Means, now he's like the lone holdout from the OG team, says that new facts have come to light to support the motion for a bail reduction.
What does that even mean? What new facts should get her out of jail?
What could it be? And like, does she know where the kids are?
Well, yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
So who knows when that'll be? I don't know if it'll still have to wait because of all the stuff happening, or if they're going to try to like do another like telephone hearing type thing. Who knows?
It's interesting though. So that will probably be on the docket probably the next couple of weeks. I will be incredibly surprised if that actually goes through with the new judge, considering what we discussed on our last episode about how she's known for being very fair and very strict.
Right. So let's hope that she lives up to that. Now, one other update this week. This is, I think, the biggest update, personally. Lori's wedding ring. We found information about her wedding ring, when it was purchased, how it was purchased, and that kind of gives us a little bit more to the story, wouldn't you think?
It pretty much shows premeditation at this point. Not premeditation in the sense of, murder. We don't have that yet, obviously, but it's making the case for it mighty clear.
Mm-hmm. So her ring was purchased on Amazon, and it was through Charles Vallow's account on October 2nd, 2019. It was purchased after his death, so on his account, so she was still using it. Now, what does October 2nd mean to you guys?
Chad was still married to Tammy. That was 17 days before Tammy died.
And a little too far from Halloween for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they purchased this ring before he was even, able to marry someone else. So the ring was delivered on October 7th to Lori's townhome in Rexburg, which we have gone to. And the website history also shows that someone was searching for wedding dresses the next
on October 3rd.
Mm-hmm. Now, also on October 2nd, something interesting happened that day. That's the surveillance footage from the storage facility. So remember, we don't know who this man is with her, but from what a lot of people are saying, it has the same gait as Chad. So he was hanging out with Lori on the 2nd.
Slapped her ass.
Yes. Before his he was still married, and this woman, everything I've read on her is she was such a sweetheart. And yeah, so that's terrible.
The philandering asshole is discussing weddings and slapping a woman's butt. Yeah. So
now, also with the ring, what was it made out of?
Malachite.
Okay. And then they mentioned that in Ian's document last week. I believe we talked about it.
It is the stone of transformation.
Yes, I'm so glad you said it like that.
And it has nice vibration.
Yes, it is used in energy healings, and it was also mentioned by Ian. You are correct. If you recall, in that document that we discussed in depth last week, there are different stones used for different ceremonies and rituals because of the vibrations and so on and so forth. So
nothing's better than the byproduct of mining copper.
Yeah.
Well, Lori, remember, she is in charge of healing and music. So I don't know where the music's coming into play, but at least she can heal with
Now,
her
do we
ring.
have a date on the wedding dress yet?
Not when it was purchased. No, I don't know if she went through Amazon. Maybe that'll
It
come
was
up
on
soon,
Amazon.
but
Someone in, I believe, the Christmas Misery group did find the wedding dress that she bought.
Oh, no.
But we don't have, like, a purchase date yet. So
you too can own the Lori Vallow
collection.
wedding dress. Oh my gosh, how terrible. Oh, and her ring was super pricey at $35.99. So if you'd also like a matching ring for that.
Well, considering Chad's assets totaled like $200, and then Lori had to pay for her own ring.
Well, no, she didn't even.
Her dead husband.
It was Charles. Well, who knows what credit
Yeah.
card she used, but still, like that just seems a little too...
Ugh.
You know, don't use your dead husband's account to buy a wedding ring for the new husband. I don't know. Everything about them is just horrible.
Everything. It's so like salacious and gross.
Sorry, we don't have a ton of updates. That's what's going on right now. I'm sure the hearing is going to be the next thing, and we'll see what these new facts that have come to light are.
So, yeah. So moving on from the Lori Vallow case, I feel like we're going into new territory, guys.
We sure
So
are.
Amanda is going to start out with a story. Do you want to get into and tell everyone a little bit about the case that you chose?
Yeah, so my case I chose is about two brothers who were truckers. And we, this week, got into the discussion of just serial killers and killers in general. Sometimes, even though they are convicted, they don't always stay in prison. And that was kind of frightening. So we each kind of picked a case where they have been released at some point. Some have gone back, but they've been released at some point, which is very scary. So my story is about Anthony and Nathaniel Cook. I know Anthony went by Tony, so sometimes you'll hear Tony. Basically, it happened in Toledo, Ohio. So between 1973 and 1981, Toledo, Ohio was a very scary place to be. Even the cops and detectives and stuff were dreading at this time going into work because they knew that there would be another murder or, you know, something horrible happened, and they had no way of catching whoever was doing this. So I've been watching a lot of interviews with some of the detectives, and they looked so sad during this time talking about it. So it was very, very scary. A lot of people were afraid to leave their houses at night. And, that's a long time frame to be scared. Now, the reason in 1981 that it stopped is on September 18th, 1981, Anthony Cook assaulted two friends, Todd Sabo and Leslie Suwicki, while they were in a van at an apartment complex. So Todd tried to fight off Tony, and Leslie escaped to call her father and the police. Her father, Peter Suwicki, arrived before the police and was shot and killed by Anthony. Todd was also shot in the neck and the shoulder, but he luckily survived. Now, something kind of terrible that I found out while researching this case is the Ottawa Hills Police Station was less than a mile from the scene, but they did not send officers because it was out of their jurisdiction. They sent the call to Toledo police, and that may be why her dad got there first, and then unfortunately he was killed.
That's so sad. Do you know, was he killed in front of her, or?
They don't specify. I can't find the actual police documents from it, but just like the news articles and a couple interviews from years down the road is what I was able to find. But yeah, she ran away to go call, and it's just, if you're closest, just get there. I hate this jurisdiction thing. I'm sure it solves other issues, but like in cases like this, I'm sure her father didn't have to die.
That's sad.
That's very sad.
Right. And so Tony was arrested and sentenced to life in prison for this, right? All set. All great. Well, Detective Frank Stiles was the chief investigator who had been looking into unsolved murders and crimes in the area. So one of the ones that was just stressed out all the time trying to figure out what the hell was happening in his town. Now, during the investigation of the Suwicki shooting, Stiles connected Anthony to the shooting with the help of the informant that he had. And then he helped develop Tony and Nathaniel, his brother, as prime suspects in the unsolved killings. Unfortunately, they couldn't do anything without solid proof. So basically, it was just, that's where it ended for a long, long time. Remember, that was in 1981. Fast forward to 1997. So DNA testing started to be a new scientific crime tool. And prosecutor Julia Bates suggested that they possibly link the Cook brothers to some of the unsolved cases because, again, the detective had a hunch that it was them, but just could not find real proof, tangible proof to get them in. Anthony was already in prison for killing or for shooting Suwicki. But anyway, so by that time, Detective Stiles had already retired. Remember, it was kind of far in the future. He was working security, and Julia, the prosecutor, called him and said, hey, this is a new thing. Why don't we try to, open up these cases again and get it handled? So luckily they did that because the DNA matched to a murder of 24-year-old Thomas Gordon and the rape and attempted murder of his 18-year-old girlfriend that happened back in 1980. It was May 14th in North Toledo. Tony was still in prison, but they were able to finally bring Nathaniel in and, connect him. Now, here's kind of the thing that I see why they did it, but it just sucks. So in 2000, the brothers cut a deal in exchange for confessions to all the murders in Lucas County. Tony agreed to his life, additional life sentence, I guess, because he was already in there for a life sentence for the murder. And Nathaniel received 20 to 25 years in prison for the attempted murder of the girlfriend. They then gave their confessions to all the other killings and attempted murders that were tearing everyone apart. So this town still hadn't healed. One of the reasons the plea bargain even happened is because it wasn't going to be easy for the prosecution because it was a cold case for 20 years. So they were like, there's a way to just keep them in here or get them through all of this, then we're just going to take it, is the way that I interpret it, because the prosecutor's still talking about it to this day, which was super sad. She talks about, too, how during that time, the death penalty and life without a parole weren't options in Ohio. So keep that in the back of your mind, too. When Detective Stiles was talking to Tony, he seemed to enjoy talking about the murders and all the things he did. So something interesting is Detective Stiles wrote a book called The Evil Brothers. And so I was trying to look for it just to see if I can get any more, first-hand information. But it sells for $280 to $912 on Amazon.
Good
wow,
Lord.
It must be a gem.
Yeah.
And people must be really seeking it then.
Right? Well, I mean, for that long, this poor little town was just terrorized. People were afraid to leave. They wouldn't walk by themselves. They targeted white couples in their cars for the most part and young women.
Huh.
Kind of like Son of Sam,
Yeah.
but not quite like the profile,
Right. And they're saying that it could have been racial murders too, but they haven't really admitted to that part that I could find. Now, what they admitted to is a pretty big list of murders and rapes. So December 20th, 1973 was the first murder, and it was done by Tony alone. Tony offered a 22-year-old, her name was Vicky Small, a ride after her and her friends had some car trouble. She was found raped and shot to death, and then he just disposed of her body.
God, she's probably just needed a ride, man.
Right, that's sad. And then the one that really, this is the one that linked their DNA evidence, is May 14th, 1980. Thomas Gordon and his girlfriend had just finished a date. They were still in Thomas's car when the brothers shattered the passenger side window and forced them into the back seat at gunpoint. They drove to western Lucas County and shot Thomas. They put Thomas's body in the trunk. Then he raped his girlfriend and then stabbed her multiple times with an ice pick. Who does that remind you of?
Toolbox Killers.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought of. They left her in the back seat to die and abandoned the car. Luckily, she survived. She made it to a nearby.
Wow.
Yeah, she made it to a nearby house for help.
Oh my God.
Now, there is a big gap between these murders. So the first one, remember, is 1973. And then the next one was 1980. Well, the reason is Tony actually went to prison for armed robbery. And he didn't get out until 1979. And then that's when he started teaming up with his brother to begin the big spree. So 1981, that's January 17th, 1981, both brothers raped and killed a 19-year-old, Connie Sue Thompson, who was hitchhiking. January 27th, so 10 days later, 1981, they forced a couple, 21-year-old Arnold Coates and 18-year-old Cheryl Bartlett, into a vacant garage. They raped Cheryl, then shot and left them both for dead, and they also survived.
Wow.
So I was able to find an interview, and it's not terribly long ago, with Cheryl. And it's just her voice. I mean, she's sitting, one of those dark room interviews, because she doesn't want to have anything to do with us anymore. Rightly so. But an interesting thing I saw is that she had a dream the night before that she was going to be raped and shot.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess she told her mom about it, and her mom's like, well, don't go out. This isn't a very good neighborhood. But then she just had that mentality of, I'm 18, I'll be fine.
Wow.
Isn't that scary?
That's talk about some premonition stuff. I mean, I do believe that people can like have a premonition on things like that.
Yeah. She said something about like she was walking to Kroger, I believe, and then she just got this really bad feeling on the way back, and then that's when it happened. So very, very scary. Now this one's sad. So February 21st, 1981. This was the most gruesome and the one that was hardest to research and then see the interviews afterwards. 12-year-old Dawn Backus was walking home from school. Tony was on his way home from work when he saw her walking. He forced her into his truck and then went and picked up his brother. They took her to the basement of a theater, tortured, raped, and then bludgeoned her to death with a concrete block. They both took turns.
Oh my God.
Yeah. After the murder, this is where Tony kind of started working alone again. And then Nathaniel just, for whatever reason, he doesn't say why in the interviews. He just stopped.
That's terrible.
And yeah, the interviews are just horrible. And the reason I'm going through all these is because, like I said at the beginning, they get out, or, at least one of them gets out. So March 27th, 1981, Tony shot and killed 21-year-old Scott Moulton and 22-year-old Denise, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Sikowski, in a car in Oregon. Remember, they're in Ohio. They were truck drivers, so spans kind of far. Denise was also sexually assaulted. And then last one, August 2nd, 1981, 31-year-old Daryl Cole and 21-year-old Stacy Bolotnek were beaten to death with an aluminum baseball bat and left in the trunk of Daryl's car. Stacy was also sexually assaulted. So a lot of these are, people walking, couples in cars, friends in cars, and for whatever reason, they're just like, hey, they're in this car, we need to do this to them.
Sounds sexually motivated, honestly.
Yeah, it was just awful. Yeah, and the reason why it's kind of coming up is because 2018 is when more stuff changed. So because of the plea deal, a judge, Linda Jennings, allowed the release of Nathaniel in 2018 after he served his 20 years.
Whoa.
Because she had to. She had a lot of stipulations, including a GPS tracker for the first 12 months, being classified as a sexual predator, and being involved in a work release program. Now, this is... I watched the end of the trial. They actually have it on YouTube, a couple videos of it. But she says, frankly, Mr. Cook, I was trying to find a legal basis to prevent your release. Unfortunately, I have not found one. And although I never would have agreed to it, I am, however, forced to comply with the agreement entered by my predecessor, the state of Ohio, defendant, and defense counsel. So she did not want to let him out. But in 2018, Nathaniel was released. Now, from what I understand, Detective Stiles was still working, trying to continue to tie him to additional crimes along their truck route. But unfortunately, he had some leads, but none were successful with any proof. So his whole idea was, give me 20 years. Let me see if I can find something else on these guys and keep them in prison. And he wasn't able to do so.
Oh, no.
So one of them's out, and here's something even more horrible. So like I said, he's registered now as a sexual predator, right? Even though he's a sex offender, he is living, they actually looked it up, 694 feet between the center of his home and the center of a school.
Wow.
The reason his crime, or the reason why he's able to do so, and it's totally legal, which is insane, is his crime was committed before July of 2003. So he does not need to follow the 1,000-foot rule.
Wow.
What?
And one of
Mine alone.
Right. And then one of his victims was a 12-year-old. So that's scary.
How old are they now? Do you know?
They're in like their 60s, I believe.
Ugh.
Yeah. But I mean, they're still perfectly capable of, doing this again. And just think about it. He lives next to a school. He could be someone's neighbor right now.
Yeah.
That's just scary to think about, that your next door neighbor, you don't know, you don't know that old person down the street wasn't committing murders years ago. And then just because the laws were stupid and, a lot of them have changed significantly. I know Ohio has changed significantly since then, but they weren't allowed to get the death penalty, and they weren't allowed to get life without parole. So speaking of that, Tony was denied parole in 2015, but he has another hearing set for 2024.
God.
Right? monsters.
That's horrifying.
So hopefully he doesn't get released. I saw, like I said, I was watching the hearing videos and like the prosecutor with the families involved, and like they still hurt. And it's just so sad that they were trying so hard. They stood up in front of the judge and like, you know, said, this is why he shouldn't get out. And the judge, I mean, I think I completely agree with her. She has to follow the law. She can't just go, nope, I think he's a monster. She had to let him out.
That's awful. I can't imagine how like horribly her family is hurting.
No,
The 12-year-old girls, like, I just can't imagine.
Yeah, and hers was the most, I mean, absolutely brutal. From what I read, they took turns with that block.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just awful. So that's straight out of Ohio. If you live near a school, check out and make sure that you don't live next to Mr. Cook. That's just terrible.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that
And that'd
guy.
be Nathan Cook, correct?
Nathaniel.
Nathaniel.
Yeah, Nathaniel Cook, Anthony or Tony, and whatever you want to call him. He has his next hearing in 2024. And they even said that they're taking, you know, letters and anything people want to write to try to get him out of it. I mean, he has more counts, and then also he had a prior murder. So I think that they have more wiggle room with him, because then they can just say, well, due to this murder before the plea bargain, you know? I'm hoping.
That's terrible, though.
Yeah, I
Let's
really,
hope
truly think if he got out, he would do it again.
He would refund.
Mm-hmm. You're right. And then, well, Nathaniel, in some of his interviews with the detective Styles, he was so just callous, and he's like, yeah, I don't know why I did it. Yeah, I don't know. Just, no, you...
Didn't care.
You participated. You raped these women. Like, you wanted to do this. So, just the way he came across, even though he was kind of the extra person, like his brother was totally the ringleader, but like he participated. Like, he is just as guilty. And the fact that he saw additional crimes happening after he stopped and didn't do anything about it, you could totally tell that it was the same MO. Totally awful. Just, yeah. But the detective, there's a ton of interviews with him, the prosecutor, and it did, I guess, help them open, you know, some other groups within the prosecutor's office to look at some old cases. So I guess some good came of it, but I don't know. It was still bad. Sorry to bum everyone out.
Man, that is sad. All right. Well, I don't have a story that's much happier.
Oh, no.
But maybe we get a little bit of a better ending. Okay. I decided to try to keep it local. So I looked around in the Portland, Oregon area to find someone, and I happened across a Mr. Richard Marquette. Richard Lawrence Marquette was born and raised here in Portland. He was born on December 12th, 1934. His first known crime and logged arrest was in June of 1956. He tried to rape a woman, but she actually ended up declining to press charges, because we all know how common that is.
Right.
He was just 21 at the time, and he was immediately released. A few months later, he was arrested again for disorderly conduct. The following year, he tried to rob a local gas station in Portland. He clubbed the station attendant almost to death with a sack of wrenches that he had wrapped in a bag.
What?
He was sentenced to 18 months in prison, but was released after 1 year of good behavior.
18 months?
Yep.
That's it?
He served 12 out of his 18 months.
What a good boy.
Oh my gosh, a year?
So that's the first time he's arrested, okay? Serves a year, gets out.
Okay.
On June 5th, 1958, 23-year-old Joan Caudle was reported missing by her husband. Her husband claimed that she had gone shopping for Father's Day gifts and never returned home. Mr. Caudle went to the police, told them about it, and obviously he became the prime suspect in his wife's disappearance. Coincidentally, the Portland police also received a phone call that a woman's dog had brought home a human foot in a brown paper bag.
What?
So detectives go to this woman's home, and while they are there, her dog comes home again, this time with a severed human hand.
The dog's like, look what I found for you.
Look what I found for you twice.
Oh, no.
Police pretty much realized very quickly that this was a murder and that Mr. Caudle was not involved. 3 days later, on June 8th, parts of a dismembered female body were found scattered across vacant lots across the Portland metro area.
Could you imagine being the dog owner?
Right.
Like,
I would never kiss my dog again.
Oh my God. Like, I'd be terrified. I'd be like, what the?
Yeah. They had, on June 8th, parts of a dismembered female body were found scattered across vacant lots across the Portland metro area. So fingerprints determined that they did, in fact, belong to Joan Ray Caudill. So police started a full-scale investigation. They began to retrace her steps, and then they found that she actually spent time at a tavern that day after she went shopping. And she was speaking with someone named Richard Marquette. There was a woman, I mean, we all know the type, the woman who hangs out at bars every single day. She knows everybody's name. She knows everybody's mama's name.
She kind of has a little grub voice.
Yeah, we all know that type. So they spoke with a woman and who's a regular, and she said that she had been flirting herself with a man named Richard Marquette, and then all of a sudden, a woman who appears to be Joan Caudill came over and took his attention entirely off of her.
Oh no.
So the woman confirmed that Richard and Joan had left the bar together. So that was enough for police to be like, okay, this is likely our guy. So they go to Richard Marquette's home, and he wasn't there, but they executed a search warrant. So we've all heard this story before. They open up his refrigerator and they find chopped up body parts wrapped in newspaper and stacked neatly inside of the refrigerator.
What?
And all of the body parts had been completely drained of blood.
What?
What was he doing with
the
it?
blood?
Yeah.
He was eating it.
Ew.
But every piece of her body was present except what had already been recovered, the foot and the hand, as well as her head.
How did the dog get it?
Apparently, he had just gone and scattered her remains all over the place.
Oh, okay.
Her extremities all over, various parts of Portland, and kept the quote-unquote meat. An arrest warrant was obviously immediately issued, and the Oregon governor actually implored the FBI to add his name to the FBI's most wanted list. They did so, and it was the first time that the FBI's most wanted list had 11 names on it.
Interesting.
Was actually when his name was added to it. So because of that show, Richard Marquette was arrested in California the next day. He didn't put up a struggle and immediately admitted to murdering her. He claims that she had recognized him from elementary school when they were both in the tavern, that they had gone to school together, and they had gone back to his home to have sex. Richard claims that the two had sex, but then immediately got into an argument afterwards. He admitted to choking her to death and then panicking over what to do with her corpse. He said he decided to dismember her body in the shower and then to dispose of pieces around Portland.
And that is why you don't seek out people that you went to school with.
Yes, that's the entire reason right there.
That's awful.
So sad. So he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Okay, again, he was sentenced to life in prison. He only served 11 years and was let out on parole due to obtaining the status of, quote, model prisoner.
That is absolutely absurd. Like, he had a prior of hitting people with wrenches, right? And then literally ate someone.
What a good boy.
But yeah, you're so nice in prison. Let me let you out after 11 years. So that's insane to me.
No, I've never personally understood that for violent, heinous crimes, but here we are. So he only served 11 years of that. So here we are in 1975. In April of 1975, a fisherman discovered a dismembered body in Marion County, Oregon. The body had been bled dry and precisely, expertly dismembered. The victim was Betty Wilson, a 37-year-old North Carolina native. And her case, I did a little extra research on her, and it's actually really sad. She got pregnant, and she was forced into marrying a man at the age of 16. And they had 11 children.
Oh my God.
They lived in an abandoned school bus with no water, no electricity, no functioning toilets. Her children had been placed into foster care one by one. So, and apparently her husband just literally beat the shit out of her almost on a daily basis. And they were heavily, heavily involved in drugs as well. So after all 11 of her children were taken from her by the state, she and her sister decide to break her out. Like, she actually has to leave her husband. So she jumps into her sister's trunk and they drive from North Carolina to Oregon. So she gets here to Oregon and she's, apparently poor, trying to make ends meet. And that's when she was in the tavern. Questionable as far as whether she was a sex worker, I read a couple articles, but regardless, she met Richard Marquette at a local bar. And that's how
that's
that
where he
happened.
hunts.
That's where he hunts.
Okay.
So police initially suspected her husband to be her murderer, but he was back in North Carolina and he had alibis up and down that he was working. So due to the similar characteristics of the Joan Caldwell murder, police suspected good old Richard Marquette. So after, again, retracing her steps to a local nightclub, he officially became the suspect by law enforcement. 55 hours after Betty Wilson's body was found, a search warrant was served on the trailer where Richard Marquette had been living, and he was immediately arrested for her murder. He ended up pleading guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole. He also randomly confessed to an additional murder in 1974. He says that he met a woman in a bar, agreed to have sex, brought her home, and choked her to death before mutilating and dismembering her body. He led detectives to the shallow grave in which he had dumped the remains, but the heads of any of his victims were never identified and found.
And he won't say where the heads are?
He never admitted to where the heads are, and he is actually still currently incarcerated 45 minutes away from where I am sitting right now. And he has been in prison since 1975.
At least he stayed there that time.
Yeah, I mean, apparently the second time took. But he did go out and murder 2 people, was, arrested, put into prison, and then came out and murdered 2 more people.
Right, and I don't understand that, just how he got out from model behavior. And then, I understand, at least when I said had a plea deal from forever ago, before laws were changed a little bit. But that's just crazy.
And not only was he released after, brutally dismembering, can we not, skip over the fact that he was eating her?
Right.
So there was no
return after that.
No return, no psychological help, with that. No. List. I mean, I know it was in the 60s and, early 70s and whatnot, but yeah, he was a clusterfuck of awful.
Right. That's horrible. Jeez, these are all so bad.
I know.
Well, thanks for bringing everyone down. Just the fact that, all of these people have been released at some point. Some have gone back, but just thinking about, you could literally kill someone and then it's fine. Just go out again. Please don't do it again. Please promise us you won't. Thank you for being nice in prison.
I hope that doesn't happen with Lori Vallow.
No, I think just based off of what has changed since a lot of these have occurred was for the better. Where it's going to be, there is prison with or life without parole and there's death penalties and that sort of thing. It's just more, can they get the right proof with her case? And if they can, I think that will be solid. If they can.
That's true. But there is a fun fact. So,
oh no.
Yeah. So The Atlantic did a really great article. They spoke and interviewed people with the National Institute of Justice. And basically they came up, and so basically the number of serial killings has supposedly fallen in the United States, right? But along with that, so too has the rate of murder cases solved or cleared, being what detectives call it. In 1965, the U.S. homicide clearance rate was 91%. By 2017, it had dropped to 61.6%, one of the lowest rates in the Western world. In other words, now this is as of 2017 research. In other words, about 40% of the time, you can get away with murder.
That's too much.
And that has to do with all the different jurisdictions that we have, which goes to your case, Amanda, initially. Mm-hmm. Different dockets assigned to different detectives. I mean, just so many different, movement now with the interstate system. People can move around a lot more. You can be in New York and 2 days later be in California. So, and then when you add on to that jurisdictions and whatnot, but yeah, 40% of the time you can get away with murder.
And the clearance rate just means that they've made an arrest, correct? Or that the person that they suspected of doing it has passed.
Correct. And it doesn't even have to be the right person.
Right. So they made an arrest. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're convicted. So think about that too, that figure can technically be skewed.
Yes.
Which is horrifying.
Does it make you feel better?
No, it does not. So your next door neighbor may be a serial killer. Just saying. Is what I get from that.
Yeah, right. And living near a school.
No. Now, the HuffPost had done an article too in 2015, and they actually took like the numbers, and they came up with that you've got a 0.00039% chance of being a serial killer's victim. So less than 1%, which helps a little.
That does help a little. So the founder, Thomas Hargrove, and if you have access to the internet, which obviously you do if you are listening to this podcast, check out the Murder Accountability Project. I spent hours on this website, and it compiles just ungodly amounts of homicide data. And so this particular project believes that at least 2% of murders are done by serial killers, which would equal roughly, based on our average, crime numbers, would equal about 2,100 of them nationwide. Like active current serial killers. But criminologists, right, like even with the FBI, believe that currently there are between 3,000 and 5,000 active serial killers at any given, like current day.
One is too much.
No, I don't like that. There is something, too, that I actually thought was interesting on NPR. So if you look up the clearance rates, and there's an NPR article from, it goes up to 2013. So it's fairly old, but it was still interesting. You can type in your zip code and get the clearance rates for almost any type of crime in your city.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you basically can put in either the city, zip code, whatever you want. Oh, actually, scratch that. So you can put in your city, and then it'll break it down by type of crime, how many were cleared, and what the overall percentage of the clearance rate was.
Wow.
Yeah. So I am happy to say that in my city, back in 2013, because it has not been updated, all murders were cleared.
That's good, at least.
Look at yours. Let's look at yours real quick.
Yeah.
Little old Portland. Well, it looks like back then you guys were fine for, I put in Port of Portland, but it looks like you guys had a 50% clearance rate, which is actually below the average, right?
Yeah, below the 61%.
Oh, you know what? That's for violent crimes. It says that no murders took place in that specific area, but I'm pretty sure there were.
We actually have a really low murder rate.
Yeah, but at least the violent crimes, you were 50% resolved.
That's always good.
But yeah, it's kind of fun to play with and also terrifying to play with. But it does go up to 2013 since they've updated it. And it's called Look Up Crime Clearance Rates in Your Community. Not terrifying at all.
No. So check it out and get back to us. Thank you for listening. Next week, we will have another episode to be determined. But God knows, within minutes to spare, next Tuesday, there will be a Lori Vallow update.
Right when we click record, it'll
Yes.
be like, hey, remember this happened.
Justin Lum, I swear to God, has a calendar and a timer.
Mm-hmm. Even when we change our times and days, he knows.
I know. Somehow. So Justin Lum is Santa.
Aw, that's a really cool thing. He's local for me.
Thanks again for listening, guys. And again, until next crime.